Hi, folks. Welcome to our very first installment of Make It Make Sense, hosted by me, Jim Brem, and the lovely Kim Page, who is on the West Coast. Say hi, Kim.
Hey, Kim. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
I want to preface again, this is our maiden voyage, so we may have a few little technical bumps along the way, so just forgive us and don't preclude that from coming back. The Make It Make Sense podcast will be covering topics in your life and in the world that at face value just don't seem to make sense. We are going to unpack these topics on each and every show. For our first episode, we are going to cover the very, very hot topic of the epidemic of loneliness across generations. So, Kim, are you ready to make it make sense?
I am, Jim. Let's go.
All right, I'm going to start with a quote. Recent research from Harvard and the CDC identify loneliness as a pervasive public health epidemic affecting roughly 1/3 of U.S. adults. Studies confirm it is not just an emotional state, but it's a physiological risk factor. Chronic illness increases early mortality risk by 26%. Think about that, Kim. 26%. That's huge. And is linked to elevated stress and inflammation. And we all know what stress does to us, as well as inflammation. As you get older, none of it's healthy. So I believe that's, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, Kim, but I think that's why they're now identifying loneliness as an actual epidemic and not calling it just, some kind of emotional state.
Well, it's not just emotional, right? It's physiological.
That's right. And we're going to prove that on this segment of the series. We're going to have two series on this. The first one's going to go through the 20s and the 30s, because every generation, this is something we share generationally, but every generation has different causes and effects of loneliness. So I'm going to start by playing a clip from a woman who I absolutely adore. Her name is Mel Robbins. She wrote the book Let Them. And if you haven't read it, I strongly encourage you to read it. It's a great book. It changed my life and my way of thinking several times. So let me play a short video clip from her regarding this topic.
Friendship. It's really hard right now. And there are specific steps that you can take and simple habits that will make new connections appear and your existing relationships become deeper and more meaningful.
If you are feeling lonely right now, the first thing I want to say is that it is nothing to be ashamed of. A recent study found that 1 in 6 Americans reports being isolated or lonely most or all of the time. I'm going to share with you the 5-3-1 formula for social health. You should aim to interact with 5 different people each week, to keep at least 3 close relationships, and to spend 1 hour a day connecting. Taking care of your social health is a way to change your life and change the world. Young people today spend nearly 1,000 fewer hours per year with their friends.
Hold on a second. 1,000 less hours a year?
Compared to 20 years ago.
So what do you think about that, Kim? 1,000 hours.
Yeah. Seems like a lot, right?
And you want to know something? It is a lot. Because if you put that in any kind of context and you take out the hours that you sleep, that's about 18% less time than you and I spent that this generation is spending right now.
Well, and we're going to talk about some of the causes of that, some of the reasons, right?
We are. So, loneliness has been called a lot of different things. And, we have smartphones, we have all kinds of technology, we have all different things that people are attributing to loneliness. A lot of folks are still blaming the pandemic for loneliness, but I'm not so sure I buy into that. We have smartphones and social media, remote work, and yet surveys consistently show rising levels of loneliness across every generation. So is loneliness about being alone? Is it about feeling unseen, misunderstood, and disconnected? What do you think?
I think there are a variety of things. Social media, one, for an example, I go with my son, my older son, who's almost 40 now, to Disney. His group of friends like to go to Disneyland. We were standing in line and there were three young men there, maybe 20,
Mhm.
right? And they weren't conversing. They were all on their phones separately. So I looked
That's
at my
so sad.
son and I said, this is really sad. They've come here to Disney to enjoy this park and to go on these rides, and they're all sitting there on their phones. I think until someone ran across a video that they thought would be interesting to the other two, then they gathered around the video. So even when they're together, they're not connecting, right? In the way that I think we used to in our generation. I could be wrong, but that was my observation.
Well, I think you're spot on. I was in the barber the other day, and the barber used to be the place where you just chatted with everybody. And I swear to God, there were 20 people waiting. You couldn't hear a peep. You could hear a pin drop. Everybody was looking down at their phone. Everybody. And I was just like, how sad this is that we're so connected, yet we feel so disconnected right now. And,
Mhm.
you know, and it's starting to show. I mean, it's starting to show in our society. It's starting to show in our young people how they're having trouble communicating with each other, dating, going on job interviews. It's just a whole different piece that we didn't really have to deal with, although we dealt with it in different ways. It's just
Mhm.
really different. I'm going to play a quick clip from an actual 20 something. And
Okay.
let's hear what
Because
he had to
I
say.
had another thought
Oh,
on
go
that.
ahead. Go with your thought.
No, it just reminded me of in my 30s and 40s, when you're talking about relationships or you're in counseling, it's like even in a relationship, you can feel lonely,
Oh,
even though you're not alone, right?
absolutely.
So
Yes.
those are two different things. And I think you hit on something, and I think this young man that we're going to hear from will confirm that is that we want that connection. We
That's
want
right.
that intimacy, and we don't have that today. But
No, we don't. And we starve for it. And we need it. We need it from a
Mhm.
physiological standpoint. And it's kind of like you said, you can be in a group and feel alone. You can be in a family and feel alone. You can be in a marriage and feel alone. You can be in a relationship and feel alone. The funny thing is that, these folks who have, 1,500 or 2,000 Facebook or Instagram followers or friends, and Friday night comes along or Saturday night and they have nobody to call because those are just like acquaintances. It's almost like we become a voyeuristic society versus a society who shares our
Mhm. Yeah.
feelings and our inner thoughts. Let me jump to the video and play the video. And he's very informative. Young 20-year-old, nice guy. I'm going to go ahead and start this.
Is it just me, or does your 20s feel way lonelier than anyone warned you about? You're surrounded by people, at work, at school, online, and yet somehow, it still feels like no one really gets you. You scroll past happy posts, birthday dinners, vacations, your friends hanging out and laughing together, and you can't help but ask, am I the only one who feels like I'm slowly disappearing? I don't want this to be about just fixing loneliness, but I want it to be about understanding it and maybe feeling a little less alone in it. I realized that in your 20s, life shifts really quietly. One moment you're surrounded by your classmates, your dorm friends, your daily group chats, then suddenly everyone's gone. Not really in a dramatic way, just scattered. Some are married, some are living abroad, some are already working 9 to 5s. Some just kind of stop texting back. And you don't even notice it happening at first until it's just Friday night and your phone is dry. And you just kind of wonder why your social battery is so full while your calendar is kind of empty. I don't think it's really about like people stopped caring. It's just that everyone's trying to survive. Everyone's building something. And in the chaos of it all, like career, health, rent, maybe relationships, you just become the background character in a lot of people's lives. And that hurts, but it's real. Being in 20s kind of feels like this weird paradox. You're old enough to be expected to have it together, but at the same time, you're young enough to still be figuring things out. You scroll through your phone and see all these like 24-year-olds buying houses, getting married, landing dream jobs, while you're just kind of sitting there, kind of figuring out what the dinner is. And that comparison kind of eats you alive, because loneliness doesn't always come from actually being alone. It just comes from feeling behind. Like you're watching everyone move forward while you're kind of like stuck in slow motion. And you don't want to burden anyone with it, so you don't talk about it. So you just kind of smile. When people ask you, you say, I'm good, just busy. When you're actually just wanting connection, real and genuine, honest connection. And I noticed this a lot, but friendships in your 20s I think it becomes really fragile. Not because, people just randomly stopped caring, or it's not that anyone did anything wrong, but life kind of gets in the way. So it's hard to sync schedules. It's hard to make time when everyone's exhausted. And most of the time, it's hard to keep trying when it just feels one-sided. You start wondering if you're hard to love, if you're easily replaceable, if people just outgrew you. But the truth is, we're all kind of feeling this. We're always kind of wondering if we're doing enough, if we're being enough, or, if we're meaning enough. We're all trying to adult while still clinging to that version of ourselves that used to maybe laugh until 3 a.m. with our friends. I realize that it's not just you. Friendships don't die, they just kind of evolve. And sometimes that evolution feels like loss. And that's how it is. But here's something that I wasn't really ready to hear when I needed it the most, is that growing hurts. It hurts especially when you're growing away from people. You start to realize that some of the people that you loved don't really know you anymore. And maybe they never did.
What this kid says, and I feel really bad for this generation when I hear that, his loneliness is riddled with pain. It's riddled with not feeling accepted by society, not feeling accepted by his peers, not succeeding on where he thought he would be at this phase of his life. And a lot of what I hear him saying is just sad. I would like to sit him down and say, you know what, this is just a snapshot in time. These are all just symptoms of something. And he did hit the nail on the head that, not everybody is feeling the same way, but they're not talking about it. They're not getting it's work. This is hard work, and it takes a lot of effort, he said. And the 20-something generation, I don't see where they really want to, everything's so instant and immediate that they don't have to put in so much effort like we do. They don't have to drive in the car and go over to someone's house to have a face-to-face conversation. They don't even have to speak. They just have to send a text. So, it pains me to think that, they have all these emotions that they can really just kind of kick away or, talk with one another, but they're so readily quick to ghost one another and to move on and to jump to conclusions of things that may not be the fact. And we'll get into another piece on that a little bit down the road. What do you think, Kim? I've been speaking a lot here.
Well, it just reminds me, I think back to my 20s. Obviously, we look back at our experience. Times were different back then. But one thing he said about, his friends are either getting married or they're buying houses and I'm thinking, at what age in their 20s, who's buying houses in their 20s right now? That's a whole nother topic. But career-wise, I look back and I had that feeling that my friends were surpassing me because at that time going to work for, defense contractors like Rockwell and Northrop and all, that was the thing back then. And I wasn't doing that. I was focused on going more into technology. And I thought I'm being left behind. But then in my 30s, what happened was I then leapfrogged, so to speak, because I went into a completely different career. And then, so it's very difficult. I went to counseling one time and she says, be careful about comparing your insides to everybody else's outsides.
That's right.
And we do that, right? And social media exacerbates that.
Well, let me stop you there for a minute. Where is the parallel here? The parallel here is you feel like everybody's getting ahead of you because you don't see what everybody's doing. You just hear so-and-so's working for Boeing and so-and-so's working for Northrop Grumman and so-and-so's working in the aerospace field, which was prevalent in your generation. My generation was more consumer packaged goods, finance, whatever. And then you hear him saying, since the social media is thrown at you all the time, you're actually seeing it. So pick your poison? Is it better not knowing and just assuming? Or is it better seeing what everybody's doing and assuming that your eyes are telling the truth, which we know on social media they often aren't? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. But Jim, we're only 5 years apart, dear. So let's make sure we're in kind of a similar generation. So I just wanted to make light of that. I thought it was funny. But yeah, different people went into different fields at the time. So I absolutely agree with that. But I want to come back to this young man because you can hear his pain.
Yes.
You can really hear his pain. And I think that's the part for us to really sit up and pay attention to, because that's very real for him. And in your 20s, right, if we remember, we tend to take things we've just come out of high school and college, right, where we had maybe big groups of friends and things were very different, and we went to parties, and it was just different. And then as you grow, like he said, part of it is growing pains. And then we'll talk about, as we get into our 30s, and what people are experiencing today in their 30s versus maybe what we did. But it is about growth. It is about growing. And you start to work, and you start your career, and you start making a whole new group of friends, right?
Well, the 20s is the scatter. You know, they all scatter. They go from their high school, junior high school, elementary school in some cases, all the way through. Then they scatter to college, and they kind of taste it, but they're home frequently enough throughout the year. They're home in the summers. They're home on breaks, on holidays. And then once they graduate, that's the true scatter, where they don't know where they're ending up. And I suspect, now I have nothing to back this up, but I suspect a lot of these kids, not just economically, are moving back home with their parents. They're debilitated from making a decision because they have so many decisions that they can make that weren't available to us, your generation and mine. They were not open to us. So, you know, it almost debilitates them. So they go back to the comfort zone. They go back to their parents. They go back to their high school friends. In some cases, their junior high school friends. They go back to what they know. And I forget what exactly the number is, but it's a very high number of 20-somethings that do go back to the childhood home and back to their childhood bedroom after being out there. But they also have different priorities. Remember, a lot of them are going to work to save money for an experience, and then they go out for their experience and they go back to the workforce. Go ahead.
But this is also a different economic environment. So we have to remember that, because this age group feels like they have been left behind and left out. And that, again, that's a whole nother episode to talk about. Yeah, but I have a 29-year-old, and I know how they feel. It is hard to afford anything these days.
It's hard to afford anything at a 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old too.
Exactly.
But let's go back to the pain. I just want to touch one more on the pain, and then we'll go into the 30-something generation. The pain, think about this gentleman who's on the video. He seems like, you know, he's typical American boy next door type of thing. Now think about someone who's different. Think about someone who's trans. Think about someone who's gay. Think about someone who's an immigrant. Think about someone who doesn't fit the societal mode, and how much enhanced or how that in pain is exponentially more hurtful. I mean, that is the part that just breaks my heart, that there is so much pain on these kids at such a young level for something that is so innocuous that it's a matter of educating this group of folks. And hopefully this podcast will help.
Well, and empathizing, right?
Right.
So it's really to empathize and to help them understand that this too shall pass.
Right.
It'll be okay.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the 30s. So going into your 30s, we have a whole different realm. Your 20s, you kind of figure out adulting. The 30s is kind of where you need to kind of prove yourself, and folks start to really scatter again. They start to move for their jobs. They start to have a bigger geographic separation from their referent others, whether they're college friends, their childhood friends, their high school friends. they start having children, which again, now they start getting involved in different groups. Those who have children will hang together. Those who don't have children yet feel left out and feel lonely, and for all different purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and play another clip. And let's hear her. She lives in New York City. She has a really good take on how to get through loneliness, and also how to, what strategy she's using that seemed to be working for her.
There was a moment in my early 30s where I realized I am feeling lonely. It was really scary for me to admit. I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment around it, but it was the truth. I was feeling lonely. I was newly out of an 8-year-long relationship. I had just started working for a fully remote company, so I was working from home. A lot of my friends had left the city recently, and I was just kind of flailing to figure out my social life and just what to do with my time. It's now a few years later. Here's what I did to really help me start to feel connected again, to meet new people, to deepen my relationships, and to also just strengthen my own relationship with myself. And if you are new here, hi. I'm Kayla. I am 35 years old and I live in New York City. I love talking about life in your 30s and things like this that I just wish more people would talk about, because I think a lot of us have felt this way at some point. So a few things that really helped me when I was at peak loneliness in my early 30s. Making sure I got out of the house and had these like low-key social interactions with others. I started taking group fitness classes in the morning. I have always been a morning exercise person, but at this point in time, I was doing a bit of a mix of at-home workouts and then also going into a fitness studio to take group fitness classes. But the thing was, I noticed on the days that I took a group fitness workout class, as opposed to doing something in my apartment, I felt so much better. Just like noticed a world of difference in how I was feeling, my loneliness levels, all of that. Honestly, these like little interactions started to make such a big difference and made me feel just like, okay, I got a little bit of that social boost, and whatever happens the rest of the day, that's something. Becoming a member or a regular somewhere where there is that focus on community. I joined a gym here in New York City that is really focused on community. If you are in the city, I cannot recommend the athletic clubs enough. They are not only an incredible workout, but also an amazing community. For me, joining this gym and like telling myself, okay, I am focused on making new friends at this gym, and even just like admitting that to myself, that like, okay, we're gonna make some new friends, Kayla. That made such a big difference. It's all about finding what that spot is for you. If you're someone that likes working out, maybe it is a fitness community. Maybe that's a book club at your local bookstore. Maybe that's an intramural sport, an art class, a gymnastics class, just like somewhere where you're gonna see the same people at the same time. Trust me, you'll meet some like really awesome people that you never would have had a chance to connect with otherwise. When it came to deepening friendships and connections with people that I already had, one thing I did was I hosted a book club for friends from all different corners of my life. I literally posted it on social media and was like, hey, does anyone want to come to a book club? And I was shocked at all of the responses from people from various corners of my life, people I hadn't spoken to in years. And I said to them, okay, let's do this book club and also invite some of your own friends as well. And this ended up being a really awesome way for me to not only reconnect with people from these various corners of my life, but also expand my circle and connect with people who have this similar interest to me. Sometimes I think it's so hard to be the person that starts the thing you want to see. I know I am actually pretty introverted and I don't love being the hostess, but sometimes you have to take that leap in order to like get the ball rolling. Another thing that really helped me to deepen my friendships was to have a TV show that we were watching together. At this point in time, it was The Golden Bachelor, and my friends and I would choose a day every single week that we would go to someone's apartment and watch it together. This was great because it was like a real low energy type of socializing. You could show up in your pajamas, bring dinner if you hadn't already had it, bring snacks, whatever it was that you needed. And it was just like a really chill way to hang out together. And I cannot recommend this enough, whether it's a TV show or something of that nature. Like, share this common thing that can keep you bonded and together. I also think this is a really good way to stay close with long distance friends as well. Another thing that I really worked on, and I'm honestly still working on, is actually showing up. I'm one of those people that I will oftentimes say yes to group plans, but then when the time comes, I do not want to go. I'm feeling tired. I'm not feeling social. I don't have a cute outfit. I just don't want to. It is not my best trait, but I have really been working on showing up when I say I'm going to. If someone makes a plan and is inviting people and I say I'm going to go, I actually show up. Look, I'm the first person to say, listen to your energy levels. But I also challenge you to ask yourself, is the reason that you don't want to go because you are actually tired or because you are nervous and want an excuse as to why you shouldn't go? I know I have to be honest with myself sometimes. And the thing that I end up doing is I'll tell myself, okay, I'm only going to stay for an hour. And then after that hour, I can do whatever I want. And chances are, once I get out the door and get to the place, I don't want to go home in an hour. I'm usually having a good time and not ready to leave. But sometimes I just need to give myself that out so that I can get myself out the door.
The showing up thing, I love that, because that's life. I mean, that's every aspect of life, every generation. You just have to show up. You're gonna, whether you have a good time or a bad time, at least you had a time, at least you had an experience, at least you were there. But the major differences between the 20 and 30s, I think, are pretty dramatic in the fact that, it seemed like the gentleman with the 20s, he was more stuck trying to figure it out. And it feels like Kayla here, she's kind of figured it out and she's come up with strategies. Like, she's got her job now. Her friends are all moving. They've made it through their 20s and they're saying, okay, now I'm going to address this feeling of loneliness. And some of her strategies I find great, joining the gym and even the book club. That doesn't have to be that you're going to have 25 people to your house. You could do a Zoom. And it's just as connecting, not as connecting, but pretty connecting, where you'd be surprised of the friends you didn't know who may be living in your city, but they're friends of someone else. And that can exponentially grow your network right there. What are your thoughts, Kim?
Absolutely. A couple of things that I connected with, and it is true for all ages. Number one is the TV show. So remember when Game of Thrones was a big deal? Yeah.
You're going to hate me, but I never watched it.
There were a group of us that got together, right, that watched Game of Thrones. And I heard other groups, different age groups who did that. But back to the gym, because I was a fitness instructor for 30 plus years, just as a way to get my workout in, and because I love to teach. And I can confirm a lot of people that come to those classes have these friendships and create these groups and do things outside of the fitness class as well. And that has happened in the classes that I've taught in every decade. So
Absolutely.
Finding like-minded people, you go and enjoy the events or activities or things that you like, and you will find those like-minded people there. So I loved all of her examples, and I love the fact that she shared it. Right.
And if you're a little more introverted or things too, and you're starting from scratch, it doesn't hurt to change your routine a little bit. Go to a different coffee shop and maybe you'll strike up a conversation with someone in line. Or, there's so many downtimes in our life that people are scrolling. Put the scroll down, put the phone down, and talk to the person next to you. Talk to the person in the elevator. Talk to the person on the commuter rail on the way to work. You'll be surprised how open they are, because, again, we all have that yearning for connection. And I know I mentioned earlier that I don't attribute it a lot to COVID, but I do think that has hurt all of us. We've all been it's made it a lot easier for us to retreat instead of move forward, because we were so retreated by force through COVID that I think, instead of the threatening things, it's easier to just skip.
Well, yeah, and then companies realize they can save a lot of money by people working at home.
Right. That's changing a lot, though. A lot of the companies are finding they're bringing people back, though, at least hybrid. But the common thread, again, she seemed to be feeling a lot of pain. And that's unfortunate because, we are in, how many people do we have in this country? And how many people, she's in New York City. There's, 11 million people in New York City. It's, it's hard. It's hard,
Yeah.
but you have to make the effort.
But unlike the younger gentleman, she found ways, right?
Right.
She took action.
Right.
And I give her a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I do too. And the folks who don't take action, the loneliness feeling isn't going to go away. It's just going to exacerbate, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And as we're going to go into our next segment, we're going to see a doctor who talks about the physiological changes to our body and the impact of loneliness. Now, I will say that we're going to watch part of this video on this episode, and then on the next episode, we're going to continue this same topic going into further generations. We'll hit the 40s and the 50s and on until, the end of the life cycle. And it does have different meanings at different stages, and there are different strategies at different stages. And there's not a one size that fits all here. So remember that. Just remember that the person next to you or in the group next to you are probably feeling the same thing you are in some capacity. So let me jump this on.
Have you ever been in a crowded room full of people, maybe at a party or a work event, and felt completely alone? Or maybe you've scrolled through social media, seeing everyone's seemingly perfect connections and felt like you're the only one struggling to find your people? If that resonates with you, I want you to know something important. Loneliness isn't a character flaw or a sign that something's wrong with you. It's actually your brain's ancient alarm system trying to protect you. But here's the problem. That same alarm system that once helped our ancestors survive can now trap us into cycles of isolation that are toxic to our mental and physical health. I'm Dr. Tracy Marks, a psychiatrist, and I make mental health education videos to help you strengthen your mind, fortify your brain, and build resilience. In our last video, we talked about managing conflict while staying connected. But what happens when connection itself feels out of reach? Today, we'll look at what loneliness does to your brain and your body and how you can work with your wiring to break the cycle. Here's something that might surprise you. Your brain processes loneliness the same way it processes physical pain. In fact, when researchers put people in MRI scanners and had them recall times of social rejection, the same brain regions lit up as the same as when someone experiences actual physical injury. What were those brain regions? For those who like to know these kinds of details, the anterior cingulate cortex and the right ventral prefrontal cortex. These were areas that process the distress of physical pain, become active during emotional pain too. But loneliness goes deeper than just emotional hurt. Your brain has an ancient survival system that's constantly scanning your environment for threats. And this system, called neuroception, operates beyond your conscious awareness, automatically assessing whether you're safe or in danger. And when your brain detects social isolation, it interprets this as a survival threat. Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. For thousands of years, being cut off from your tribe meant that you were vulnerable to predators. You had no one to share resources with, and you couldn't rely on others for protection. Those who were socially isolated often didn't survive. So your brain developed a powerful alarm system to motivate you to seek connection, avoid isolation. But in our modern world, that ancient wiring can work against us. When you feel lonely, your brain floods your system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your amygdala, your brain's alarm system, becomes hyperactive, constantly scanning for social threats. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation, become less active, making it harder to think clearly or regulate your emotions. And this creates what researchers call the loneliness loop. The more isolated you feel, the more your brain interprets natural social interactions as threatening. Let's say someone doesn't text you back immediately, and your hypervigilant brain might interpret it as rejection. A coworker seems distant, and you might assume that they don't like you. These interpretations then make you feel more likely to withdraw and increases your isolation, making your brain more threat focused. And there's a physical toll of social isolation as well. When your stress response system is constantly activated, it creates inflammation throughout your body. Lonely individuals show elevated levels of inflammatory markers like interleukin 6 and C-reactive protein. These same markers are associated with heart disease, diabetes, and cognitive decline. So your immune system also takes a hit. Chronic loneliness suppresses immune system function while paradoxically increasing inflammatory responses. It's like your body is simultaneously unable to fight off real threats while overreacting to perceived ones. And this might explain why lonely people get sick more often and take longer to recover from illnesses. Sleep becomes another problem. When your brain is hypervigilant for social threats, it has trouble fully relaxing into deep restorative sleep. You might find yourself lying awake, replaying social interactions, wondering if you said something wrong, or feeling anxious about an upcoming social situation.
So, Kim, what did you think about that? I found that to be fascinating, how the brain has so much to do with loneliness and the chemicals the chemical reactions going off, and even at different stages of your development, how that's going to affect us differently as well.
Well, yeah, we talked earlier that it's not just emotional, mental, it's physiological, um, and does actually affect the brain. She talks about the cortisol levels and the
Yep.
inflammation and all of that, because we talked about that in the opening with the quote.
And I
So
can,
I think, yeah,
yeah, I can
important to-
definitely emphasize with when she said, you get hypervigilant if someone doesn't respond to your text right away, your call, and you start playing tricks, and you have those tapes running in your head all the time. That's also a big impact. That has a big impact on your loneliness. I mean, it's crazy how this is all connected. It's just crazy.
Well, we do that. It's interesting. As humans, we jump to the conclusion that, oh, they don't like me, or they're mad at me, or what did I do wrong? And it could simply be they're busy. Right?
Right. And we're all busy.
Yep.
And we're as guilty as probably inflicting the pain of loneliness on someone else just by not being there for them, or just by not answering their text, or not answering the phone when they call, or ghosting them, even if it's just for a short amount of time. And I guess that's unconscious infliction of loneliness on another. I don't know. Just made that up. But it's just very, it seems like such an obvious thing we can fix as human beings together. Even if it was just having some kind of communal hangout for people and all. And I guess we do have that, but it's I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm very confused as how I feel about this.
I think it's about awareness.
Yeah.
I think having the awareness that you're feeling lonely in a certain moment, and again, it's a moment. And it's not your entire life, but it is up to us to get out and to reach out. I was someone who was guilty of that I didn't always reach out.
Right.
And so I'm much better at that today.
I am too. I think that comes with somewhat of age, and that's again
Yeah.
why we're breaking this all up over the different age brackets, because there are different cause and effects here for loneliness. But staying into like the 30-somethings and the 20-somethings, I think, the importance of this segment of this video, learning about the brain, is that understanding where it's coming from gives you power to adjust it.
Yes.
Once you understand what that is, it will give you power to change it, because you realize that it's not just you. It's a physiological thing. It's in your brain. It's like folks who have panic attacks, they can really talk themselves out of those, but they have to learn how to talk themselves out of it. And I think you need to learn how to just get up and go. I'm going to give a final question for our listeners. Like, when was the last time you felt truly seen by another? Something to think about. And, you know, loneliness isn't a character flaw. It's a signal. It reminds us that we're human beings. We were never meant to navigate life completely on our own. Every generation experiences loneliness differently, but the solution often begins with the same way: genuine connection with another person. We spend so much time of our life trying not to bother other people when the truth is most people are hoping someone reaches out to bother them. They want to give their opinions. They want to give their love. They want to give, they just want to be social. We're social beings. But I do want to end on, you know, there were some very important takeaways from this. So in our first segment with Mel, if you remember, they had the 1-3-5 strategy, which I love. Our young lady in New York, she had the showing up strategy: show up, just be there, make it happen, do a book club, do a, you know, go to the gym, make it happen. The 20-something seems to still be figuring it out, but he was understanding it. So he was understanding that it wasn't just him. So I don't know if he gave us a lot of strategies, but I think he is figuring out as a strategy in itself. What is causing me to feel this way? And then, of course, you know, our medical professional here is telling us that it's not us. It's, you know, it's a physiological thing, and we have to learn how to control it, and we have to learn how to cope with it, and we have to learn how to deal with it, and only we can make it change. So on that note, Kim, it's always a pleasure seeing you. I love sharing the screen with you, as I have many times before.
Likewise. I'm anxious to hear, you know, going through the 40s, 50s,
and yeah,
and even 60s, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And listeners, please like and subscribe and put comments in for us, because, you know, we are here to make the show better. This was our maiden voyage. Thanks for bumping around with us out there and hitting those waves hard. But we're going to get through this, and we're going to continue to get better and better every week. Eventually, we want to make this into a call-in show where you'll be able to actually be interactive. But now you can still be interactive by commenting. So the first couple are going to be taped, and the rest of them will be live at a set time, so you can come on live, and then we'll go in and we'll take your calls as we go through on the various topics. So we're hoping to make this fun, but not just fun, useful. We don't want to just be another podcast out there just talking heads for the sake of talking. We want to bring some real solutions, and hopefully for you 20 and 30 somethings, we brought some value to your life. We're making it make sense for you as to why you're feeling lonely, not just the feeling of lonely, but we're bringing you some value add there. So on that note, I'm going to bid you all adieu. Thank you again so much for coming, and we're going to see you soon. Kim?
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
See you. Take care.